Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here today with a literary adjacent chat. This is something new that I'm doing on the channel where I wanted to talk about things that are happening in the world or things that I'm thinking about, uh, something that sparked my interest that has some kind of relationship to books or adjacency to literature. So, in today's session, I thought I would talk about what's going on in the Bay Area. If you follow me on Twitter, I've been posting some updates about what's going on. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we are under wildfire season and wildfire watch. And there's a lot of implications of that. So I wanted to kind of unpack it a little bit, especially because I know that some of the people I've been chatting with don't live anywhere near here and so are not as familiar with what could be going on and may see the news and not be able to contextualize it, which I completely understand. So I thought I would try to do that here. So what's going on is that a couple of things are happening. This is a normal time of year where everything in the Bay Area just kind of dries. In Northern California, this is kind of the dry season. That means that we are at more prone to the potential for fires. That's normal. It happens every year, and we do have scenarios where bad fires do happen. It's part of the process of what happens in this ecosystem. But something unique is taking place this year, two unique things. The first thing is that there is a Santa Ana type of wind that's coming through Northern California. This is usually a Southern California phenomenon, but it's impacting us here in Northern California. And the Santa Ana winds are incredibly dry, incredibly fast, and just really dangerous winds that just come out and especially during hot season and dry season. So they bring a lot of danger with them, and they tend to make you a little crazy too. More on that later. The second thing that's happening, so let me say that doesn't always happen here. Santa Anas are very well known in Southern California, and it's very rare that we get something like that up here. The second thing that's taking place is a complete failure of the privatized electrical power company, PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. They dominate the California market and have been fundamentally negligent in how they have maintained their infrastructure and have been actually the cause of many of the fires, including the Paradise Fire that happened last year. And I'll put a link to some stories about that in my comments box below. So last year was the Paradise Fire, and it was hell on earth. Not only was it terrifying for the people who went through it, it also, the way the winds whipped even though it was kind of in central, more inland to where I am, the winds whipped it our way, whipped it west, and completely took over our skies. We had multiple days where people couldn't leave their homes without masks on. The air and the sky was orange. You would see particles of ash falling from the sky. It was a horrorscape. It was absolutely terrifying. And while we weren't in danger of fire from that, the impacts of the smoke were sent our way. So now what's happening is that as a precaution, because PG&E knows that it's been proven and they've been sued and lost in a court of law, they have to protect themselves. And so what they've done is they've just shut off power to many of the counties and towns in Northern California. I think they've also done that in Southern California as well. But so Berkeley, the city that I live in, most of Berkeley was shut down. I'm very lucky. We kept our power. So, knock on wood for that. But many places in Oakland were completely without power. So my favorite bookstore, East Bay Booksellers, were unable to sell because they couldn't operate anything, and there was no lights. So their website's open, but they were unable to do business for a few days now. So it's pretty frightening. Uh, you have Marin County, the entire county of Marin County, which has some of the most expensive homes, and it's one of the most expensive real estate in the San Francisco Bay Area, is completely without power. So these are strange, strange times. And the impact of just this turn off of power, which takes a few days to ramp back up when you're ready to flip the switch, is hurting the poor, hurting the elderly, hurting the disabled more than it is someone like myself who is able-bodied and can go to a hotel or make other arrangements because I have the means and the flexibility. But this is really horrific. And it reminds me very much of a lot of what was going on in Victorian times, where the dependency was so great upon these new systems in this new industrialized world that people were left wholly dependent upon a lot of these new systems. Whereas in the old previous times, they maybe were rural and they took care of and prepared their own food and took care of their own needs, whereas moving to the city requires them to give up a lot of those protections that they had for themselves. So it's just another continuation of the previous conversation we had about ways that Victorian literature was influencing my thoughts about our current state and where we are with our transition from the industrial into technological and automation societies and economies. Another thing, when you think about Victorian literature, you hear a lot about coal and the air being so polluted because of the coal production. And so you walk in the street and it feels that way. You can see the ash. You can feel your lungs burning. Your eyes burn. I'm very lucky because of what happened in the Paradise Fire. We have bought a lot of plants to be able so you've seen. These did not exist a year and a half ago before the Paradise Fires. The ones that you usually see when I sit in the other part of the room. But I bought these so that I can help oxygenate the air, and we have air purifiers. So my windows have not been open for multiple days, and I have been working from home because I do have electricity, but needing to be here because a pre-evacuation order was put in place for Berkeley. So that means that people were being asked to have go bags ready. Grab all of your important things, grab your important papers, the items that you need, and have it ready and packed to leave if an evacuation order is sent. And so therefore, as any bookworm would do, I have had to gather all of my precious books that I can't live without. So my signed copies, my first edition, those kinds of things. And my husband has gathered his beloved guitars, and we have our key important documents and everything ready to go, ready to jump in the car should Berkeley be under an evacuation notice. So all of this is to say that there have been some books that I've turned to during this time to kind of get grounded and to help me contextualize it, which is something that I want to do whenever I feel anxious. And the first book I wanted to share with you all, and this would be fantastic for Nonfiction November, by the way, is Fire Monks. This is Zen Mind meets Wildfires at the Gates of Tassajara by Colleen, Morton, Busch. So I am affiliated with the San Francisco Zen Center. I've been a member for many, many years. And Tassajara is the wilderness retreat that is in the mountains. It's kind of, it's a Ventana wilderness. It's east of Big Sur. So it's kind of down from Northern California, kind of in the middle of the state, absolutely in the wilderness. It's very remote. It's very hard to get to. This book is about a fire that took place, and a few of the monks chose to stay and address the fire, address the danger to try to save Tassajara. which could be seen as a foolhardy endeavor. For them, it was about meeting the moment as it was and working through the fear and being of value to the Sangha. This is a really great book if you want to understand courage and all of the feelings that come from such a traumatic thing that's happening and coming. Some people stayed, some people didn't, and there's no judgment to the people who left. And I think it's a fantastic look at how to process the anxiety that comes from a pending disaster. So this has given me a lot of solace. And then the second thing that I wanted to share, I'm not going to read it because there's a lot here, but this is from Slouching Toward Bethlehem. This is my edition. It's my Everyman's Library edition of Joan Didion. And this one has a few of her stories. This is her collection of nonfiction. This is We Tell Ourselves Stories in Order to Live. Collected nonfiction. And in here is Slouching Toward Bethlehem. And the chapter is called Los Angeles Notebook. I remember listening to this on a trip my husband and I took down to Venice. I wanted to go to the beach for my birthday. And so we went down and stayed at Venice Beach and listened to Joan Didion on the way down. It was a fantastic, fantastic trip. And it was made better by the audiobook. And in it, she talks about the Santa Ana winds and what it does to you psychologically and the effect that it has on a community. And I can't think of a better way to explain it than Didion herself. So I'm going to put a link to a passage that I found online that kind of you could take a second and kind of review. But it's a phenomenon unlike any other that I've experienced. And the anxiety that it produces is very palpable. And she pulls that out really well. So that's it. I just wanted to share those things and to thank everyone for your well wishes. We are fine and we'll get through this. And assuming that there's no additional winds, Berkeley has been restored. The power's been restored to all of Berkeley. And the feeling is that the windstorms may not be so bad today and tomorrow. So fingers crossed. I appreciate all the well wishes and I'll look forward to talking to you all at another time. Bye.